I have talked about the job options and how hopefully you can assess jobs as an international student when you come into the country. Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. I hope you're all doing well. For this video, we're going to be talking about job options for international students in the UK. So I thought to put this together, especially for those that are thinking of coming into the UK and are thinking what are the options in terms of job and part-time jobs while you're studying that they can lay their hands on. So now let's delve into it. The first thing I would say is that when you're in the UK as or when you come into the UK as an international student, you do have the option of taking some job. You are allowed to take some job, especially on part-time basis while you study for your program. The first thing to note is that there are some restrictions on your tier 4 visa which would not allow you to take up some job. One of them would be the professional football career or coaching option. Another one would be doctor or dentistry training, and some other programs around that you cannot take up. Aside from these ones, there are, however, so many options that you can do on part-time basis that will really support you, especially in terms of maintenance as you're studying in the UK. Right. So now let's delve into the part-time options that I think is something that will be of interest. The first one will be just taking a part-time job, which is something that you can do on your tier 4 visa. You do have the 20 hours allowed for you to work while you are within term time, and you have the full-time option once you are out of term time. So this means when the school is on holiday or closed for the year, you can actually have more time to work on this visa. When you are on the tier 4 visa, you are actually allowed to work on a placement or as a placement option if that is attached to your course. So that is also one that can be looked into. I can have a video on placement and how to go about getting placement options if this is something that will be of interest to some of you guys. The next one is internship. So you could get, this can also be part-time, the internship where you can get within the university or around universities or universities around you as you study for your program. So some lecturers do get grants from outside the university or within the university. They do get funding that supports their research, and they do place adverts for interns where you could be employed as research assistant within some 3 months to 6 months, depending on the length of the program that they want or require you to work with them for. So that is also an option where you could work as an intern while you're studying and gaining experience, and also gaining some money as you study for your degree. The other option is a sabbatical officer. Now, a sabbatical officer is someone that is elected by the student body within the university to serve on the executive panel of the university student board. Now, the thing with this is you obviously would have to be politically inclined, and you obviously would have to be elected and win your election with whatever manifesto that you have campaigned on, and win that election for you to be able to serve as a sabbatical officer. Thing to note about sabbatical officer is this is a full-time role, so you will be given a visa to support you so you can stay in the country while you do that. Now, I can delve and or talk more about sabbatical officer in another video and how to assess it. I know several friends who have gone through this or used this route to get job. You do get paid. Like I said, it's a full-time role and you do get paid, and it's also open to international students. This is something that most international students are not aware of, so it can be quite beneficial if you're interested in politics and improving student experience within the university that you're studying at. The next one is the good old-fashioned volunteer. So the volunteering option, it's definitely a job. It might not necessarily be the one that would pay, because it doesn't give you if you're volunteering, it can be unpaid, so you might not necessarily be getting financial support from it, but you will be getting the experience, and you can also put it as part of your job experience on your CV. So the next thing I want to talk a bit more about is the part-time, because initially I mentioned that there are part-time roles and there are different varieties of them. Now, part-time roles, some students work, you could work literally anywhere and everywhere that accepts students for part-time role. But the popular ones are, for example, working as a grocery sorter, working as parcel collector and sorter, working in some industrial area, some factory, working with in care setting. This is one that is very popular among international students, working in care settings, supporting both elderly and young people that are within care setting. Most of the time students access this via some agency. You would be attached to the care setting that requires your service per request. So what it means is that you can be in one setting in one on a certain day and be in a different care setting on a certain day. This is also similar to what you have when you work with agency in the support setting as well. You do get options of you do get situation where you're sent to different places. So sometimes you can be a bit new in different, for a while before you really get a hang of where you're working at. However, this is an option that most students also use and is accessible for most international students. Now, I want to talk a little about the requirements before you even start working. So when you come in, we all want to just, delve in and start getting some money to support yourself, especially in terms of maintenance. You need to keep in mind, you don't just come into the country and then start working. There are things that you are required to do before you can sign up for any job. What I tell people is that when you're coming into the country, I would suggest you make plan. Like I said, you don't just come and start immediately. And keep in mind, you're here for your studies, so your working time is quite limited. So I suggest to people to make sure that obviously they have the fundings that will support them, while keeping that in mind that this will just be a very minimal addition to that. So the first thing to do is, when you come into the country, you're required, if you're going to work, obviously, you're required to sign up for the NI scheme. Now, the NI scheme is that you get a number. This is a number that gives you an ID for everywhere or every job you will be doing. So it's used by the HMRC, which is the government body that is attached to tax and other work related issues. So you will have that number, and that number is what you use to pay your tax, and they withdraw tax from your wages before it gets to you. That is if you have if you have tax to pay. If you do not have tax to pay, because there's a threshold, there's a minimum amount that you have to exceed before they take tax from your wages. Now, NI, you come into the country. When you're ready, you would call the NI. The NI process is changed over time. Since when I came here, is actually changed, because when I came here, it's a bit different now to what it is right now. So what you do is you call the NI. My advice would be call the NI as soon as possible, and then once you have the NI code, they will get some details from you, and they will send you a link for you to fill out form and send them some documents as well. Once this is done, this is all you have to do with the NI. You will then have to wait until you're called for interview. If you do have interview, I've heard of some people that do have to go in for interview. And if you I guess with the whole COVID situation, you might not necessarily have to go in physically, but aside from that, you just wait for them to process your documents, and they will send you the number when it's ready. It depends, like I said as well. Usually it takes about a month to 2 months, but now it might be a bit longer than that. Right, so taking away from NI, we've discussed NI. Now the next requirement, the NI is the universal requirement for anyone and everybody that's going to work in the UK. Now the other requirements are just things that might depend on the type of job that you're going to be doing. Now there's something called DBS, which is the criminal background check that is done if you're going to be working in certain setting, like I said, for example, care setting and support setting. This is something that is really key and required. So they do a background criminal check and make sure that you haven't had any criminal record that might affect them employing you, especially because you'll be working with vulnerable members of the population. So that's also another requirement. Usually the agency that you're going to be working with, that you sign up with, will be the one to put in the application on your behalf. For some agency, you would have to pay them to make that application, but for others, or depending on, for some others, you would have to work certain hours and they write it off from your account. So the next thing is, you would obviously be filling so many application forms. You're required to fill application form for every agency, every job advert that you see that you want to apply for. So in my situation, when I came years ago, I remember filling so many forms because I went to so many places, so many organizations, that I was just trying to get my foot into the job pool for within the UK. So I had to make so many applications. Some places they would require reference. In fact, most places they require references. So you could use your lecturer. I have so many of my students that send me reference from for different jobs. So you could have students, and I did that as well when I came into the country, where I sent some of my application form to my lecturers. So you could have your lecturer as a referee for some of your application, and sometimes you could also have people even outside the country. I'm saying this because you might be thinking, oh, I don't have job experience or work experience within the country. Who is going to reference me? Also have people outside the country that can write reference for you for that job. So that's another requirement. The other requirement is that most time, in fact, most job that I know of or I've heard of, you will be trained before you start. So don't freak out like, oh my God, how am I going to do this job? I've never done it before. For most job, you will be trained. You go for physical training or online training as COVID situation warrants. But you go for training and they will tell you exactly what needs to be done. It will be trained as required until you leave them. So don't worry, don't freak out. You will be trained on whichever road that you're going to take. The next thing is that you would also be inducted, and depending on the job, most job would have you shadow someone. So what does shadow mean? Shadow means you're going to be going out to a colleague that is already an expert to an extent, or knows exactly what the job is and what is required. So you will be there with them hands-on as they are doing the job. You're watching, you're learning, they are telling you things to note, and they are even sometimes they would give you some tasks for you to do as required by the job, so that by the time you finish your shadow, you're confident to actually do it yourself as well. One of the jobs that require you to have a driver's license or a provisional license is the security job. So what you do here is that you use that provisional or the actual driver license to as part of the registration for that job. But that doesn't mean you will need to actually drive to get or to work in that sector. It just means it is part of the registration process. And similarly, you also do training and you also get inducted before you actually go and start your shift if you're going for the security option. These are areas that are more in-depth and you require more information, cost and all that, which you can obviously look into if you're interested in that area. Thing I want to mention is, when you come into the country, sometimes it can be difficult to even know where do you get to apply and where do you find some of these job adverts. So one thing is that you need to install some apps. So for example, the Indeed app, the Read app, Jobs for International Students app, and several other apps that are out there which you can literally Google and get them on. So that is one thing you should do. Some of these apps can be very useful with job adverts. One of the other thing is to make use of the resources that you have at hand, which is your friends, your colleague, and students that are already here before you come in. This is one of the key and most useful things to have, or resources to access for international students. So you're coming into the country, you obviously don't know as much as others that have been here. Try and talk to them, try and join WhatsApp groups. There are so many universities now that students do have WhatsApp groups where they exchange ideas. So right on there, I'm trying to get job. What are the jobs that are available in this area, or where can I go and assess them? So word of mouth is quite key as well for you to get a job and get going in terms of some wages coming in. Another thing to think about is the bank requirements for you to have an account. Obviously, you're not going to be paid by hand. You will be paid into your wages, will be paid into your account, and you need to have this going before, or for you to be able to access your wages. An easy route that most international students use now is the Monzo account, which is quite straightforward, easy to access, and very quick and fast. So students just put in their details, fill in some form, and they have account open in a flash. The thing with Monzo account is because it's a very quick and easy to access account where you can easily get paid and get money in and access that. You do have card attached to that account, so you can use it. You can use ATM. All of these are very quick and easy for you to access. So this will be one option to quickly have an account running for you to be able to access your wages. But what I would also advise is, in addition to the Monzo account, try and open the more general accounts, which is like the Barclays and the Lloyds and the Santander and the rest of that. The reason being that those ones can be used for more official situations if you do need them. The problem with those major banks is that it takes a long time for you to get your bank account open. What you do is to actually get your bank account going, the major banks, like I said, you will have to get a bank letter from the university. So that is a letter that sort of like introduces you as a student, and you take that to the bank, then you fill some form, and give or take 2 to 3 weeks on a normal day. I wouldn't know, now with COVID it might be a bit longer for you to then get an account opened. So like I said, if you're in a hurry and you really need a quick account for you to get going with, Monzo is a good one for you to start. I have talked about the job options and how hopefully you can assess jobs as an international student when you come into the country. Obviously there are so many other aspects that I have not touched on, so please do your research as well, and hopefully this sort of like shines some light on some questions that you probably have. So this is the end of this video. I will see you next time, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.